The city of Long Beach is famous not only for being one of the largest ports in the world, but also for the large number of unidentified victims. In total, there are about 20 well-known Long Beach John and Jane Does. This video will tell stories about several such victims found near the beach in Long Beach in 1974. Despite the fact that their lives ended in the same place for similar reasons, the outcomes of these cases turned out to be completely different. Also, it turned out that at that time, there were many strange persons operating in this city, among which there was at least one notorious serial killer. Subscribe to this channel and don't forget to click the bell to get notifications about new videos. Long Beach, California, 1974. May 28, 7:30 a.m., Alamitos Beach Pier. Here, near the intersection of Linden Avenue and Shoreline Drive, the body of a young woman was found. The deceased turned out to be a white girl with dark hair and eyes of the same color. According to the coroner's report, the girl's height was about 5 feet 6 inches, and she weighed 119 pounds. There was a T-shaped scar on the back of her left hand, and another scar was found on the back of her left thigh. Her age was estimated to be between 18 and 28 years old. She was presumably of Latin American descent. The unidentified woman was dressed in a pinkish-orange pantsuit, a 3/4 length artificial black fur coat with bronze buttons, and calf suede boots. On her finger was a 14-karat white gold engagement ring with a small diamond. She was also wearing black bikini-style underwear with a strawberry print. In the girl's pocket were found 2 keys, one for a mortise lock of an ordinary door, and the other for a padlock, both on a keyring with a broken chain. The cause of death was asphyxiation, which was preceded by rape. This was likely the motive for the attack on the girl. In 1974, it was impossible to definitively determine how many attackers there were. However, fingerprints were taken, and other materials were preserved that could help the investigation in the future. All attempts by investigators to establish the identity of the murdered woman led to no results. Moreover, they couldn't find the person responsible for her death. Years later, hoping to make a breakthrough in the case, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children created a forensic facial reconstruction of the murdered woman. However, this did not help the investigation either. As a result, this case was classified as unsolved, one of the so-called cold cases, and the unidentified victim became known as Long Beach Jane Doe, or Jane Doe number 40. When new methods of studying DNA material became available to law enforcement agencies, Jane Doe's case became a candidate for participation in the National Institute of Justice's Solving Cold Cases with DNA program. But it could not be accepted for work, as the biological material was deemed unsuitable for study. Only in 2013, 39 years after the discovery of the body, detectives Todd Johnson and Malcolm Evans found a man from Texas who was related to this case. It was found out that he did not participate directly in the murder, but helped the criminal move the body. The interrogation of this person led the police to the killer. The murderer turned out to be 61-year-old Gary Stamp, who was arrested on May 20th, 2013. Stamp denied his involvement in the crime, but this didn't last long. Ultimately, he admitted that he met the girl in a bar, got acquainted with her, and then raped and killed her. A friend helped him dispose of the body, who later moved to Texas. But even catching the criminal did not help shed light on the girl's identity. As they had only known each other for a couple of hours, all Stamp knew about the girl was that her name was likely either Anna or Ann. The rapist and murderer was 22 years old at the time of the terrible crime. Stamp was never convicted for this crime, as he died of cancer in January 2014 while in custody. The identity of Anna Doe, as the girl has since been called, remains unknown to this day. 6 months later. Long Beach, California, November 10th, 1974. In the area of Spring Street near the 605 freeway, a lifeless body was discovered on the Lakes apartment complex carport. The body found belonged to a young man. He was found naked, and the absence of clothing on the victim and other signs suggested that he likely died elsewhere and was brought to Spring Street later. Coroners could not definitively determine the cause of death. It was evident that the victim had been beaten, with a head injury identified and signs of strangulation. In addition to these injuries, The condition of the body indicated rape, which appeared to be the motive for the attack on the young man. He also had distinctive features: 2 tattoos. One of them was the inscription "Bud" on his knuckles, and the other was the USMC insignia tattoo on his hand. All attempts to find witnesses of the crime, or even those who saw anything unusual on the day the murder occurred, led to no avail. The next stage of the investigation was to determine the identity of the deceased, but the absence of clothing and any documents significantly complicated the task. Despite the distinctive tattoos, investigators in 1974 were unable to identify the victim or find the killer. Many years later, the quality of the detectives' work would raise numerous questions from the victim's relatives. From the moment it was decided that the man's identity could not be established in the near future, the deceased began to be referred to in investigative documents as John Doe, number 155. Under this same number, he was cremated and buried at the Los Angeles County Crematorium Cemetery. For many years, due to the lack of witnesses or any evidence, the murdered man could not be identified. However, local authorities allocated funds and established a special department dedicated to working on cold cases. Retired detectives were involved in this part-time work, and this approach worked. Experienced detectives worked on cases where the specific leads stumbled upon the case of John Doe, number 155, and discovered information about the tattoos. After looking at the evidence and physical description, it suggested he was a military man, so we began pursuing that, said Lieutenant Lloyd Cox, who worked on the case. Law enforcement officials contacted the Naval Criminal Investigative Service at Camp Pendleton. When they provided the date of death and description of the victim's appearance, it quickly became clear who the young murdered man was. Oral Alfred Stewart, Jr. was born on November 5, 1956, in Des Moines, Polk County, Iowa. At the age of 18, he decided to join the Marine Corps. In 1974, he completed basic training at Camp Pendleton and received a short leave, after which he asked his relatives for some money to enjoy his break. His family never saw him again after that. 12 days after Stewart failed to return to the military base on time, he would have been declared a deserter. However, his loved ones never believed this. "He was murdered," said Oral's older brother Carl Stewart. "I never believed he just disappeared. He loved his family and the Marines too much." Carl was the person who was shown photographs from his brother's autopsy, and he identified him. After the LA County Coroner's Office reviewed the circumstances of Stewart's murder, the death was reclassified as a homicide from blunt force trauma. Stewart's deserter status was changed to an honorable discharge. The Marine Corps organized a funeral with full military honors at the site of the new grave. His tombstone for the unknown burial was replaced. The young man's father, Oral Alfred Stewart Sr., died 5 years after his son's death at the age of 59, never knowing his fate. It is tragic news, but it brings closure to his family and answers to what happened all those years ago, said Lieutenant Cox. With his identity, we hope someone out there remembers speaking to him or saw him back then and can help us identify a suspect in this case. However, as Cox himself believes, the killer of Oral Stewart has long been known. Randy Kraft. Randy Stephen Kraft was born in 1945 in Long Beach and was always considered a smart and promising young man. He graduated from Westminster High School, ranking 10th out of 390 students. At that time, he and 2 friends even created the so-called Westminster World Affairs Club. He adhered to conservative views and aspired to become a senator. After Westminster High School, Kraft enrolled in Claremont Men's College, where he continued to be regarded as an intelligent and resourceful young man. But, despite having relationships with women, he started dating men. This led to problems with the law, but due to various circumstances, coincidences, and his pristine reputation, it did not result in any records in his personal file. During this period, the man radically changed his political views, organized a branch of the Democratic Party, and actively campaigned for Robert Francis Kennedy in the elections. For this, he even received a letter of gratitude from the senator. At the same time, his attempts to subtly reveal his orientation to his parents by frequently visiting them with male friends did not achieve the desired result. During this period, his academic performance declined, and he began to drink and use illegal substances. He even had to retake an 8-month econometrics course to obtain his Bachelor of Economics degree. 4 months after graduating from college, Kraft enlisted in the United States Air Force. After completing basic training in Texas, he was sent to Edwards Air Force Base in California, where he oversaw the painting of test aircraft and attained the rank of Airman First Class. Around this time, he decided to openly tell his family about his orientation. His father was furious, while his mother took it more kindly, but was still unhappy. This is how Kraft described his parents' reaction in a letter to a friend. However, when he decided to disclose his homosexuality in the service, it was not received as he had expected, and he was discharged. The discharge was officially listed as being on medical grounds. In response, Kraft sought legal advice from an attorney to challenge the grounds regarding his discharge. The Air Force refused to change the status of his discharge. This situation likely became a turning point in not only Kraft's life, but also in the lives of many people who crossed his path. After his discharge, he returned to his parents' home, worked as a bartender, a forklift driver, and even studied at Long Beach State University. He also began his terrifying criminal activity, which made him one of the most horrifying serial killers in the United States. The main targets of his rapes and murders were young men, often military personnel, particularly from the Marine Corps, and especially from Camp Pendleton. Autopsies revealed that the men were drugged with alcohol or narcotics and were unconscious at the time of the assaults. The primary methods of murder were strangulation or bludgeoning with a club to the head. The killer preferred to dispose of the bodies near highways. All of this aligns precisely with what happened to Oral Stewart Jr. Furthermore, Kraft even kept a list in which he encoded information about his victims. In his list, there is an entry Iowa, which is most likely related to the murdered but unidentified man. Oral was originally from Iowa. Randy Kraft was found guilty of murdering 16 people and sentenced to death, which he has been awaiting for 33 years. In total, he is suspected of killing and raping at least 76 people. The murderer himself denies any involvement in all the crimes. Of course, in 1974, in a city with a population of 370,000, Randy Kraft may not have been the only person responsible for Oral Stewart's death. For instance, just 6 months before the young man's murder, another very strange event took place in the area. In Long Beach, on June 18, 1974, at 6:40 p.m., the body of a man was found hanging from a railing in a basement storage area of a residential complex. The incident was reported by his brother, James Reed, who described how it all happened. His brother, Daniel Reed, was carrying things out of the apartment, and then said he was hungry and would go for a sandwich. After a while, James found his brother dead. But the police quickly found out that the deceased was not the person his so-called brother claimed he was, and it's likely that the brother also gave a false name. The deceased turned out to be a white man whose age was estimated to be within a broad range of 20 to 35 years old. He was 6 feet 2 inches tall and weighed about 184 pounds. On the finger, he was wearing a white metal ring. His identity, the identity of the second man, and what happened that day, remain unknown for 48 years. What do you think? Who is responsible for Oral Stewart's death? Will we find out who Anna Doe was? And what happened to the second man who was found hanged from the railing?